Welcome to our weekly podcast. I'm James, and I'm joined by the always amazing Emily.
Hey there! It's so good to be back, and I'm excited about today's topic, especially after all the positive feedback we got from last week's mental well-being episode.
Absolutely. I mean, mental well-being and stress management, these topics are so intertwined, right? You can't talk about one without touching on the other. And we've got a lot to cover today, so I hope you're all ready for it.
Oh, we've got tons to discuss, James. Stress is something we all face, no matter who we are, what we do, or how old we are. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to control us. Today, we're going to explore stress management techniques that really work.
Exactly. And if you're listening to this, maybe you're stuck in traffic, working on your lunch break, or just unwinding at home. Either way, we want you to walk away from this episode with actionable steps you can start using right now.
And before we dive into all the techniques, let's take a minute to quickly recap last week's episode on mental well-being. If you missed it, we talked about how your mental health affects everything in your life, and we shared some pretty simple ways to improve it. It's all about self-awareness and making time for yourself, right?
Absolutely. And guess what, folks? That ties perfectly into today's discussion because stress management is a huge part of your mental health. So if you haven't listened to our last episode yet, go check it out after this one. All right, Emily, let's kick things off by defining what stress really is. I mean, it's such a broad term, right?
Yeah, it's funny how we all talk about stress, but not everyone truly understands it. So, stress is essentially your body's natural reaction to challenges, and it's actually designed to help you. For example, if you're about to do a big presentation or run a race, stress gets you pumped up. It's part of your body's fight or flight system.
Oh yeah, those little adrenaline rushes when you need them, right? You're like, okay, I can do this. But the real issue is when stress doesn't go away, it sticks around too long and starts causing real problems.
Exactly. When stress becomes chronic, it starts affecting your body in all sorts of ways. You might feel fatigued, get headaches, experience muscle tension, or struggle with sleep.
And that's just the physical stuff. Stress messes with your mind too. It can lead to feelings of irritability, anxiety, even depression. Not to mention, it makes it harder to focus and think clearly.
It's like a fog rolling in. You don't even realize how much it's affecting you until it's too late. James, have you ever noticed that your productivity takes a hit when you're stressed?
Oh, 100%. I get caught up in all the urgent things I have to do, and it's like my brain is on overload, and nothing actually gets done. Instead, I feel exhausted and frustrated.
Exactly. And then we end up making poor decisions or just going through the motions without really thinking things through.
So it sounds like the first step in managing stress is understanding what stress actually is and why it affects us so deeply.
Right. It's that awareness that's key. Once you're aware of the stress, you can start looking at what's causing it and how you can address it.
So let's dig into that. Stress isn't just a random thing. It has triggers. What are some of the most common ones, Emily?
Oh, we could talk about this all day, but if I had to pick, I'd say work-related stress is a huge one. Deadlines, projects piling up, feeling like you're always in go mode. That's a biggie.
Yep. And I think a lot of people get caught up in the cycle of overwork and burnout. I'm sure our listeners can relate. Feeling like you're always answering emails or always on your phone. It feels like there's no off switch.
That's exactly it. And stress doesn't just come from work. It can come from relationships, family, and even finances. Have you ever felt stressed because of a family gathering or a disagreement with a loved one?
Don't even get me started. Family events can be full of love, but they can also trigger all sorts of stress, unresolved issues, expectations. Yikes.
And let's not forget technology. Constant notifications from social media, the pressure to keep up with the news, it's all adding to the pile.
It's like a mental avalanche, right? A steady stream of things hitting your brain.
Exactly. So, what's the secret? It's all about awareness. You've got to recognize your personal stress triggers, whether they're external or internal. You can't manage stress until you know what's setting it off in the first place.
So let's pause here for a second, listeners. Think about it. What triggers your stress? Is it a specific situation? Or maybe a feeling you get when something happens? Reflect on it for a moment, and we'll dive into ways to handle it. Okay, now that we understand stress and where it comes from, let's talk about what we can do about it. The good news is that stress doesn't have to take over. There are a ton of effective techniques out there. Emily, what's your go-to stress management method?
Well, James, you already mentioned the physical side. Exercise is my absolute go-to. Nothing works for me like a good run or a quick walk around the block.
Yes, exercise is a game changer. It not only boosts your mood, but it also releases endorphins, the happy hormones. It's like a reset button for your body.
And I think the key is consistency. Even a 10-minute walk can make a difference. So don't feel like you have to hit the gym for hours to feel the benefits.
Totally agree. And one thing I've recently started is journaling. Just taking 5 minutes in the morning or evening to write down what's on my mind really helps clear the mental clutter.
I love that. Writing things down can help you see the bigger picture and make sense of overwhelming thoughts.
And then there's mindfulness, another technique that's been a lifesaver. Sometimes just focusing on my breath or doing a 5-minute meditation helps me regain control of the moment.
Mindfulness is like hitting the pause button on your busy mind. And if you haven't tried it, I highly recommend giving it a shot. There are some great apps out there, like Headspace or Calm.
Let's not forget about time management, because when we feel overwhelmed by our to-do lists, stress levels skyrocket. Breaking tasks into smaller chunks and prioritizing them really helps keep things manageable.
That's such a great point. And let's talk about setting boundaries too. Saying no when you need to, whether at work or in your personal life, is an important skill. You don't have to do everything, and you definitely don't have to do everything at once.
Exactly. And hey, we're all guilty of trying to please everyone, but setting clear boundaries is critical to stress management.
And of course, social connections. Spending time with people who uplift you, or even just talking things out with a trusted friend, can make a huge difference in how you manage stress.
Yes, talking it out is powerful. And if things get too overwhelming, we cannot stress this enough. Seek professional help. A therapist or counselor can help you get to the root cause of your stress and teach you ways to manage it better.
So let's zoom out for a minute. How can society, in general, help reduce stress? I think workplaces have a big role to play here, don't you?
Definitely. Flexible work hours, mental health days, and creating a supportive work environment go a long way. I've worked in places where taking a mental health day was almost frowned upon, but that's changing, and it needs to.
Totally. And schools can do more to teach emotional resilience to kids. Imagine kids learning mindfulness as a part of their curriculum.
Right? That would be amazing. Teaching emotional intelligence from a young age is key to long-term stress management.
And at home, it's about creating an atmosphere of understanding. When people feel heard, understood, and supported, they're better equipped to handle stress.
All right, folks, we've covered a lot today, from understanding what stress is to actionable techniques that can help you manage it.
And remember, stress is a normal part of life, but it doesn't have to run the show. By being aware of your triggers and using the right tools, you can take control.
Exactly. And we hope today's episode has given you practical strategies to cope with stress in your daily life.
Thank you for listening to another episode. Don't forget to share it with your friends and family, and we'd love to hear how you manage stress in your own lives.
Until next time, take care of yourselves, stay grounded, and keep managing that stress.